Hello, I'm Rick Steiner. Welcome to Luxe Life Discovered. My guest today is Lance Farlow. So, Lance, glad to have you with us.
Appreciate being here. Thanks so much.
Good. Lance is a local musician. And so, how did you? I know you've got a very interesting background that really didn't involve music for most of the
That's
until just a few months ago, right?
that's very true. Yeah. So I grew up as a musician. Started in church and did all those things and played here and there and that kind of stuff. But after I got away and got out of high school, I joined the military and did that for a while. And then I come back here and did a couple of things and wound up working in public safety. And
Okay.
so did that as a paramedic and a firefighter, which now I do that for a living teaching. And then I honestly got to a point in life where I said, I got to do something kind of normal. I gotta do something, and I got to get back to music, and that was real important for me for multitudes of reasons. And so then when I got back at it, I said, it's not enough to get back into music. I need to get into writing, and it seemed all of these things had just kind of been boiling under the surface for years, and lyrics and all these things. And so I said, you know what? Let's let them out and see what happens.
Were you able to take a lot of your experiences because you were a Marine? If
That's
I'm
right.
not mistaken, right?
That's
Yeah.
exactly right.
Thank you for your service.
Oh no, yeah, absolutely.
So, have you just tried to capture um, a lot of things from those experiences, like service, just life in general?
Sure, and it's kind of tough sometimes because when you begin a writing or creating process, you have to draw from all kinds of sources to do that. And the things you experience through everyone, no matter what their background is, life gives you good, life gives you bad. The problem is sometimes we bottle up everything, and it's hard to access the good and the bad because of that, right? You have a very narrow window that you allow things to get in and get out, so it just kind of cuts off. And unfortunately, creativity requires that window to be widened. If not, it'll stay stifled. So when you go through that writing process, you want to write about all types of things and stories that relate to all walks of life. But it can be scary because when you're holding back things, you don't know what's going to come out when you open that up.
Yeah.
And I think that it's hard because a lot of songwriters are perpetually sad. Like as far as you
Right.
listen to
Yeah.
songwriter, singer songwriter, you look up the genre or whatever, and it's sad songs a lot of times because unfortunately those are the things that kind of affect us the most.
Yeah.
But it's important that I do take some experiences from that and then other just life experiences. And I'm a sucker for a good story. I like hearing people talk and tell me different things, and I'm like, oh, okay, I like that. I enjoy how you got here and what's going on. And so that's some of the hardest part is that you write from experience, but not every song you hear, people think, well, that really happened, or that no, you don't have to be. You can write in fiction, which is important as a songwriter to be able to do that, or you can just take a nugget of truth and then build a whole nother story around
Sure.
it to try to relate. So
What is one song that you've written, whether you played it yet or not, or
sure.
that really like got to you the most or
Oof.
touched you the most?
Well, eh, so I do have a song, and it's actually going to be on the album that's coming out on January 15th. And the song is called Sleeping to Wake, is the name of the song. And it's one that I have learned to embrace and to play in front. But it's one of those things you also have to, I hate to use the word gatekeep, right? But you have to read the room and you have to understand the audience. And there's some things you can't deliver to some audiences, and you may have to keep that for yourself a little while. But it is a tough song, and when you listen to it, it talks about being in the service and serving in combat and all of those things. And when I approached songwriting for that aspect, I was very, very hesitant about the content of which I would write. Right? So, because we live in a time where writing about these things always has a political spin to it, or there is almost, I hate to say it, but almost a propaganda feel to some of these things. Either you're 100% for it, you're 100% against it. You're forced to make a choice. You're forced to choose which side. And so I didn't want that to be what happened. I'm not here to glorify. I'm not here to condone. I'm not here to do any of these things. what I do want to talk about is the human element involved in that, and what happens when you come back, And so it enters into this drawn from experiences and real happenings of things, and it talks about, sleeping to wake. And the reason that came to me was that, we all dream. And you dream of machinations that things have never occurred, right? Your brain just spits them out. Or sometimes you relive memories, and sometimes it's a mix and match of both or whatever. And so sometimes you have very vivid dreams. And the whole concept was coming back from that environment and having very vivid dreams. And the thinking of, is it possible that sometimes some of these individuals or veterans or anybody that's had any type of background in certain things like that, is it possible that when they sleep and they dream, it's so real that when they wake up, things are just kind of foggy and gray because that's how life affects us? Which one starts becoming sleep and which one starts becoming being awake?
Wow.
When I go to sleep, am I actually over there still? And right now is a dream.
Yeah.
And so there's not necessarily a mania to it, but at the same time, you can feel the contention with it, and that's one of those things. So
are you playing that at any of your shows yet?
sure,
Okay.
yeah, I do, and like I said, you got to definitely watch the crowd. You
Yeah.
play it too, and I had a good opportunity 2 weekends ago here, or actually in PC with the Songwriters Festival.
Right.
A buddy of mine, Michael Breedlove, pulled me up, and it was Veterans Day, coming up. It was Marine Corps birthday, so there's a lot of things going on. And so he wanted me to play a song, a story about my family, which is pretty interesting as well, that one. But I just said, you know what, it feels right to do this here. And honestly, it is hard to sing that song. There's parts of it lyrically and where it draws and pulls, and it's hard to keep a straight face in those parts. But it's good. I need to do that, and hopefully I had a gentleman come up crying afterwards, talking to me and stuff. And that lets me know too, as an affirmation, that this probably needs to be heard and shared and let people have their own story.
I was going to say, when you have somebody that reacts like that, then
Right.
you know that
Right.
it's something
Sure.
there that, yeah.
And hopefully they can be inspired to share their story or to find some type of, peace, absolution, whatever it is maybe they're looking for, and not just to bottle it up and have to deal
My
with
father was in World War II, and he never
talked
discussed
about
it.
it.
We
Right.
never. And,
Yeah.
So there are a lot of people that have that mindset that it's over,
Sure.
don't want to relive it.
Sure.
So when you're looking for or writing a song, and has there ever been any that's come to mind that you're just like, I'm not ready to deal with that yet, or I don't want to put it into a song, that type thing?
Well, yes and no. It's difficult, because someone's going to recognize the subject. Somebody out there, you're writing about something that you drew from a real experience, and it may be an uncomfortable story, but someone out there, maybe it's a family member, maybe it's a friend, maybe it's someone from your past, or whatever it may be. Someone's going to listen to that and be like, oh, that's about me, or and it may not even be right, but they relate.
He writes a song about me.
Right, and it's like, hey, this is 100% false. It's never happened, but they're trying to connect and saying, this is about me. So
and there's probably something you write and you're like, I wish I could say that was you.
Right, yeah, I will let you know. It'll be the title of the song. But no, sometimes that happens, and I've had to learn to get over that, and I've had to learn that you just got to write it, and if it's the truth, you write the truth,
Right.
and if it's a story, just write a good story. Yeah.
So when you write a song, are you the one that you want it to be yours, or what if somebody came along and said, hey, I'd like to record that song?
Oh yeah, that's very interesting, and there's a lot of songwriters out there looking for a cut. They want somebody to say, "Hey, I want that song," and they want publishing contracts, or they want to do those things. They want to co-write, and the industry is very thick with those things, right? You go to Nashville, you go to Muscle Shoals, or any of these other places, New York, LA, what, it doesn't matter, and there's just perpetually rooms of people writing together, trying to get their name on a cut, trying to get the big break, and there's also songwriters out there who have cut 25 songs, and that's great for them. And I've sat in the room with some of those people and got to talk to them and hear their stories. And One lady in particular said, "Yeah, I wrote this song and I put all my kids through college, but
Nice.
no one knows my name, you know." And that's kind of how it works.
Yeah.
So I think when we talk about the art of things, I would hope, and even as myself, I feel that way, that when I write a song, there's a lot of you that says, "I want to be the one that lets people hear this," you know.
Right.
But if someone else wanted to come and grab a hold of that, it's both directions. You know, you're like, oh, okay, this would be a great opportunity. Or then you listen to it and you're like, we just ruined that. You know, that's not
That's all
my
right.
intention whatsoever. So you're
Not everybody has
cautious.
that dolly part and user
Right,
experience.
right, yeah. So you're cautious about, it's your art. You want to know how it's going to be interpreted or placed in front of people and those kind of things.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
but
Funny thing about Dolly's song that I'll always love you.
right,
She said she wrote that, and I think Dakota Many Colors. So one night, just sitting down and just wrote them real quick.
right,
And then for that to be such a popular song, and
Sure.
then people found out that she wrote it.
Sure.
And yeah, it's got to be one of those that'd be tough to sing after, you know, Whitney brought it to such
That's right.
level she did.
That's
So,
right.
Yeah. But so, how would you describe your genre of music?
Okay, well, good question. So everybody loves their labels, right? We got to put a label on everything, and you know, I understand that's how it works. The only thing I can tell you is if you're from the South, right? People are like, well, it's got to be country music, you know. If you're not hip hop or you're not, you know, it has to be country, Midwestern, whatever. You're left in that, and it's not that. It's there can be something as Southern music. There can be folk, there can be Americana, there can be those things. And thankfully, we have an outlet that has been growing in the last couple of years in the genre of Americana stuff. And what it means is basically we don't know what this is yet. You know, it's a melting pot. There's got some flavors of blues, some flavors of folk, soul, country. You know, you're out there living in this other place. You're making this other music that doesn't have to be primetime country music. It doesn't have to be industry generated
Right.
music, and it doesn't have to meet those requirements and those check boxes on things. And I think that's given a lot of freedom to a lot of songwriters and artists to be able to have a platform that 10, 15 years ago they wouldn't. You know, 10,
Like
15.
you had to fit into a certain little
Right, right.
segment,
Yeah, you were either alternative, you were rock, you were R&B, you're country, you're whatever these things are. And there was no in between no man's land. You had to pick a camp. And now there's a surgence of individuals that are like, no, I'm just going to make what I want. And you can call it whatever you want to, but we're just going to call it music. And other people are doing the same thing. So that's kind of an interesting thing to see that transpire.
So you're the songwriter festival that you went to in Panama City. What was that like? Was that your first time?
So I've been to you know events all you know over the past and different things like that. But this in particular, I felt the need to say, hey, let's go and see specifically songwriters. Let's be a part of that. And I should have done it a long time ago, to be honest with you. Just for the fact of it's hard to find specific venues that truly focus on the meat and potato of the music. A lot of time, music is used as a background everywhere you go, and I mean it's hard to go somewhere and not hear music all the time. We're bombarded, and so that does give us a lot of times a response that we just get used to ignoring music because of that. It's just you know, blah 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 in the background,
Right.
and so having places that are not Nashville or large cities or whatever that have listening rooms specifically where individuals know that when they come there, we're not supposed to be talking, we're not supposed to be laughing loud, we're actually here to listen and hear a story, hear the music and do that. So it's been great to see in Florida, thankfully. I mean, they're everywhere here, which is great.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's been a big
Oh, yeah.
employee.
And they draw huge crowds to these places and even larger artists who are getting to play in an environment that they normally wouldn't play like that. You know, it's great. And you get to hear the stories and you get to hear whatever. And the other thing is being able to see other songwriters and just say, hey, keep at it. You're doing good. You know, it may feel like sometimes nothing, but we you know, we believe in each other. So,
Well, that brings up a good point. So it's a tough road. especially the songwriting.
Sure.
So where does that drive come from
Oof.
to keep on? And because, I mean, there'll be some songs that you're right, then everybody will identify with.
That's
Or
right.
but at the end, you may not be as pleased with
Yeah,
as
yeah.
others.
Yeah.
So does it get discouraging on that from that standpoint, or how do you keep it fresh? And
I think that once you get over, and I think we all have this no matter what you do, I think there's a level of imposter syndrome that shows up in a lot of things. You know, I think we've all had moments where we've gotten up in the morning and got dressed and had to go do something, had to go to a meeting, had to go to a presentation. You'd be like, you know what? I don't know if I'm good enough to do this. Like, I'm over my head. And we all do. And I've dealt with that for a long time, you know. And I went in the past, if you told me I was going to be singing in front of people, I was like, no, I'm a guitar player. I don't do that. I'll play some blues. I'll do this. I play guitar. But then, you know, necessity is the mother of invention. You can't just go play guitar. You got to sing too. So you go from there.
well, at least you can do it. If I did that, first I couldn't play the guitar. Secondly, you couldn't sing. So that's why I don't do that.
YouTube and auto tune. We could fix you up, no problem. Be out
It take
there.
a lot.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure there's a fair amount in the industry that's actually doing that
Yeah.
right now. So for everybody to be all right.
Yeah, if you ever hear some of the people you think are really good live, you're
Oh,
like,
yeah. Someone who is good live is someone who is good. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
But no, you know, once I got to the point, and I think with me in life, I had to get to somewhere, and I was like, you know what? Why not? It doesn't matter. And once you stop caring about what everybody thinks about anything, and you start finding a true freedom of saying, hey, you know what? If you don't like it, don't have to listen to it. It's fine. But there might be one or two or three, you know, people who may relate to this. So why not give them the opportunity to hear it? And for the most part, you know, I try to tell everybody. People ask me, "What's that song about?" You know, and I always have to respond, "What do you think it's about?" Right? Because just like a painting, you know, or any other medium or any other art, when we look at it, everybody's going to see something different, you know. And in the song, everyone will hear something different because we appreciate the symmetry of thought, and we appreciate the ability to find relation within something, right? We always want that. You watch a movie, you read a book, and there's a guy in the book who's like the good guy, and he's the hero, and you're like, I have qualities like that. You know what I'm saying? Like everybody wants to share that experience, whatever. So the music should be the same. If it makes us sad, it probably relates to something that's truly sad for us. If it makes us happy, if it's love, if it's death, or whatever it is, we're going to find a way to just immediately merge our story with that and pull those emotions with it. And that's all I hope to do. And you know, it doesn't matter. There's fame, there's money, there's things that are out there. There's all types of things in the world. But I think at the end of the day, just remembering that the biggest reason to do any of this is just to make a good song.
right.
Make a good story, write a good song, and then let it free. See what it wants to do. It's going to evolve. It's going to travel. It's going to go. It's going to listen or not get listened to. It doesn't matter. But once you write it, and once you play it, or once you record it, once it's out there, it's not yours anymore. It don't belong to me anymore.
Have
So,
you had anybody tell you their interpretation of a song and it just blew you away because it's like,
oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had people tell. I'm like, I don't see that, but that's okay. You know, I'm glad that you see that. So, yeah, but yeah.
well, good. So what are I know you're playing at different venues, like you're busy this weekend for sure.
Sure,
And
yeah.
so how did you usually play?
It really depends. So I think last month I played 16 shows, which is a pretty good tempo, pretty good going there. And, you know, this month I'm probably about the same on that, you know. And it really depends. What kind of shows do you want to play? Where do you want to play? Because as a songwriter, you can't just walk out and say, I'm going to play in this location and I'm going to play nothing but songs I wrote. You won't get very far doing that because no one knows you. And unless you're just fortunate enough to be in close proximity to a listening room or whatever, and you get plenty of people coming who are just there for that,
Right.
it's going to be tough. So the rest of us, we live in the trenches. You know, we have to get out there and we have to go, you know, play at the bars, and we have to play at the restaurants, and we have to play at the festivals, and we have to play at the events and different things and the parties. which is great, right? I love it, you know, and the reason I do love it is because whenever you're playing, right, and that happens, you go and you play in a room and there ain't nobody listening to you. Nobody claps after it's over with. You know,
That is frustrating, though.
well, it is.
Like blows the ego too. I'm sure
It is, but you know, the good thing about it is kind of like a boy named Sue. I've already been beat up here. You know what I'm saying? Like I it's like, okay, well, it's fine.
Does it challenge you to like be more? Like I'll give you one that you like.
Sure, or it helps you gauge things. You start looking at people and with human behavior, and you'd be like, hey, just from the dynamics, the crowd would probably like this, or you know, you experiment because you got nothing else to lose at that point. You play a song, you're like, I don't even really know this, but I'm going to learn it and play it right now because why not?
At least you might get a response.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So yeah, you have that aspect with it, and but it's great because I view it as we're just building chops. Every time I get to play in front of anybody, I'm just playing. It's practice. You know, it's evolution. It's getting better. It's like, okay, let's try this. Let's get this locked in or whatever. And then after a period of time, even yourself can see there's a proficiency change in things, and you're just working on your craft is all you're doing. You're sharpening that blade, and that helps when you're writing, you're playing, you're coming up with stuff. You know, it just makes things flow better. And then when you get into the room that people are actually clapping, you're like, man, this is the greatest feeling in the world.
So it makes you appreciate that.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
So how have you networked with other songwriters that are in the same situation?
Well, you know, the great thing about it is we are in no way good and bad. We are in no way short on communication these days.
Good. Yeah.
You know, we have so many platforms and social media, and really social media is the biggest one. That's how I probably communicate with most of the people that I talk to, and go over here, play this place, talk to this person, meet them. Hey, what's your socials? That's the new
All
way of
about networking.
changing numbers now. Yeah, what's your social? What's your Instagram handle or whatever? Yeah. And then you go from there on the networking aspect, and that seems to be great. And the great thing about it, now there's different walks of life and different missions for different folks or whatever, but most of the people that I am fortunate enough to meet or talk to or play with or travel in the same circles, they're extremely helpful, you know, and we try to look out for each other. And for the most part, there's a spirit of inclusion and trying to bring people along. And I've been, you know, the one who's benefited from that as well. You know, people reaching out and giving me a hand and say, hey, come in here, do this.
Rather than meeting someone and think, okay, I don't want them in the group because they may do better.
Right. Oh, now that exists. That
sure
definitely exists. I want them to be good, but not better than I am.
Yeah.
I can't have that. And that's a shame, you know.
Yeah.
Because it's not a competition.
Right.
It just can't be because it's art. And how do you compete with art? Yeah, there's professional standards and there's Grammys and there's this and that or whatever. But if you look at that stuff, what makes someone have a Grammy? Well, it's generally someone who sells the most of a product. Mm-hmm. That's the competition of selling something. To me, this isn't a car lot. I can't race against my coworker and sell more cars to them or whatever. And some may say, well, the song was better, that's why it was listened. That's too many factors involved for that. How is it marketed? How's it? All those things come into effect, and it doesn't mean that just because people are listening to a song a lot that it's a good song by any means. You know, we always fall victim of that. But for the most part, yeah, there's a lot of good people out there, a lot of good players, and they're interested in hearing other stories and helping people along and that kind of stuff. And it's very important to remember that.
And it's like with everything else, people want something unique and not just a reproduction of what has been.
I think just like everyone else, I have gone through periods of my life where I'm like, you probably shouldn't say that, you know, or you probably shouldn't hold back on that, you know, whatever. And I don't know, I guess it's the quintessential old man. You know, you always wonder when I was a kid, I was like, why does that old man will say anything?
Yeah, we get that right.
Yeah, and so now I'm starting to realize, you know, you get to the age and you're like, that just came out of my mouth.
And don't you realize we had that much earlier? For me especially, I was trying to fit the mold, what everybody wanted, and I was miserable because I was living to somebody else's standard and not mine.
Yeah, so I found that the more I just was trying to be authentic as possible, things seemed to be better. There was no
That's
sense
good,
of
yeah.
just sitting in quiet, sitting in silence, forever and just holding on to something. So
So
that
where do
helps.
you, if you could like plan the next 3 to 5 years, what
Ooh.
would be ideal?
Well, I think that there's a balance of things, right? And that's one of the hardest things too is right now figuring out when you play the music, when you write the music, there is a business involved with it, just for yourself. How are you going to pay the bills?
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to balance family life, work life? How are you going to do all those things? And so you have to be really careful about saying, okay, well, I'm going to send all these calls, these emails. I'm going to do all those things. But then at the end of the day, you're like, how much did I write today? Oof, I
Yeah.
gotta remember what it's supposed to be about. And so it's hard, I think, in the transition phase to for me at least, to be able to balance that. But I think that if I could ask for anything, I think it's a natural desire to want to go further and want to go farther. And that means proximity, go meet new people in new places farther away from regionally or wherever it is, and get into places and rooms and areas where people are there to hear what you wrote. And
Right.
I think to me that's the largest compliment that you can have is when people start showing up because they want to hear a song that you wrote. And to me that's success right there. It don't have to be dollar signs. It don't have to be none of that stuff. That's where it's at to me. So
Okay. All right. We're going to put your information on the screen. Tell people how to reach you and where to go to find out where you'll be playing so they can kind of listen to you and see for themselves and hear for themselves.
yeah, sure, absolutely. So all you have to do, I have a website, lancefarlowmusic.com. You can go and check that out. All the social medias are listed on there as well. There's also scheduling there. There's merchandising there. There's all kind of things that you can see, even downloads, especially. So I do have a single coming out December 2nd, which is going to be called The Trade. Love that song. Great story behind it as well. The 15th, there's another single coming out, and which will be Serotonin Thieves. And then the album actually comes out on January 15th. And so you'll be able to find that anywhere that you stream music on all platforms. And of course, I'm on all the socials, which are listed on the site. And if you
Okay.
Google just Lance Farlow Music, a lot of times it'll take you wherever you want to go there. So,
Well, Lance, thanks for being with us today.
absolutely.
Enjoyed it. It went by fast.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we have to thank Shelby with
Yeah.
TOC for putting us together.
Absolutely.
Nice.
Of
Yeah.
course.
And so that concludes our episode of Luxe Life Discovered. We'll see you soon on the next episode.